What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for the NFL Weekly and NFL Week 8 to be exact. I had a couple weeks, took off myself, had some overtime to work, and Raider Jim was setting the East Coast on fire, spreading the good word of Raider Nation. So we are back at it for Week 8, and couldn't have picked a better crew to do it with. As always, joined by Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir? Uh-oh.
Doing very well. It looks like another, not a cloud in the sky where I'm looking.
Yeah, it's a beautiful October day. I think it was a nice 75. I had the flannel on, didn't have to worry too much about being in the sun, anything like that. Oh, what a tough climate we live in over here in San Diego. But Coach, we have, of course, Coach Brandon Lupian. You can find Coach at Portland 76er on Twitter. Coach, how you doing tonight, sir?
Doing quite well. Glad to be back on the show with you two lads. Welcome back, Raider Jim, from your East Coast hiatus, and Mr. First from overtime. You know, there's never enough, extra run. So I know when I was coaching college basketball, my ladies basketball team, we were up 3, and my dumb self said, just neglected to guard the shooter on the other team, and she bangs a 3 to tie it up. And I'm like, girls, they're all distraught at that point. I'm like, girls, who doesn't like bonus basketball? So, Mr. First, who doesn't like overtime work, getting stuff done, right?
I like the money. In 2 weeks when that paycheck rolls through, I think I'll be a little more excited about all of that. But
you're making money like your Eagles are spending draft picks and making money. What's up with that? I'm boycotting.
Well, hey, why worry about spending draft picks when we can just call the New Orleans Saints up and I don't know, we'll figure something out. We'll fleece them somehow. Yeah, I knew that
would fleece them big
time. But does look like, I think we did just lose Raider Jim. Unfortunately, I think he's got some technical difficulties. He will be hopping in. Hopefully hopping back in here momentarily, but it'll be a little moment with just the bees, a little 2 bees on a pod.
2 bees on a pod.
Little throwback here. But while we wait for Raider Jim to hop back in, Coach, we're not technically at the halfway point, but I feel like it's a good time to kind of give our impressions of what we've seen overall so far. What's caught your attention through the first 7 weeks of the NFL season?
As far as my team, or as far as the whole NFL in itself?
I mean, I'll probably say the NFL in itself, because I know you're probably not going to have a whole lot to say about those Saints. So let's go NFL. I'll take that pick.
Yeah, for the first 3 weeks, you could tell there wasn't a lot of definition in the majority of the teams in the league. The spreads were all over. The covers were like nil. So there wasn't a lot of consistency with Las Vegas and the NFL for those first 3 weeks. But then as you see, from 3 on till now, look how many 500 teams there are, or look how many teams that there are in the league that are 1 win away from leapfrogging the next, except in the NFC East, where you guys are undefeated. If you look around the league, like 2 weeks ago, the Saints are 3-4 and they're playing the Cardinals, and either one of those teams, whether it was the Cardinals and the Saints, could leapfrog the next top team. So you're seeing that. I mean, if you look at the NFC South, not one of those teams is sitting comfortably in the top seat. And then you see Carolina take care of business against Tampa Bay, the previous week. Then you see us sitting at 2-5, and it's like at any moment we could win one and still be in the mix. And either one of those teams, there's just I don't want to even call it parity at this point. But I think with the new head coaches in the league, the new hey, look at Carolina, they just got rid of a coach a week ago. So there's been some shuffling. I think other than the handful of few that are dominating this league, like your Eagles. Did I pronounce that right? Did I say Eagles?
Sounds good to me.
Right.
Yeah.
There's not a lot. I mean, look at Raider Jim's, and I'm not speaking for him right now, but the expectations for the Raiders this season were a lot higher than what they're currently looking or standing. And then I'm reading and I'm hearing this team's about to make a run. The Raiders are about to make a run. So I'm curious at his thoughts. But I and then you look at the Chargers. They're underperforming as of late, but the first 3 weeks, they were a team that was looking mighty, until some injuries. Obviously, we're all hit with injuries except for you guys. You guys just throw draft picks away to pick up all pros. So, there's a lot of, again, I don't want to use the word parity. I think that word parity equates to a lot of good, equality good. This season, I'm seeing a lot of equality bad. So I don't think parity is the right word. Versus a lot of teams kind of struggling. As far as surprise teams go, I like what Minnesota's doing, but that's because I'm a Kevin O'Connell San Diego State fan, and he's got them in a position, a very positive position. The other thing, I think Aaron Rodgers is quitting as we see it. Like, I think I tweeted out after this game, he literally forward passed to a lineman when all those skill guys were making moves up the field. And it was like, did he just say F it and just, I'm going to go to my lineman, forward pass it and end the game? Like, I want to know why there isn't anyone talking about that maneuver and where his head is. I'm like,
yeah.
Did I just see him just quit the game and just throw the game?
Like, it was almost like a rage quit, right? Like in video games,
yeah,
he just immediately he's like, you know what? No, we're not going to keep doing this. I'm just going to, and that poor lineman, like he's looking at it like, what are you doing? I mean, he's throwing the ball 30 yards to him and he throws it low too. The poor guy has no chance.
He was in perfect position to block for that skill guy.
Yeah.
That was obviously behind the lateral line, the imaginary lateral line for Aaron to throw to, and then he throws it to the lineman. Like, come on now. Yeah. If that wasn't just I quit, I'm done right now. Like, come on, get it together. But I don't know what to say. I really do like the Saints number against the Raiders, 1.5 the last I saw.
Yep.
And I don't even know where this game is. Is it
in
New Orleans?
Yeah, it's in.
That's right, because I probably would have asked Raider Jim to get us some press passes out to Vegas. He gets the press passes, I get the airline ticket.
There we go. Hey,
like that.
That's a deal. That's a deal right there. You might be getting out on the easy side of that too, if at least on the money side of things. But
what are your thoughts? I mean, your thoughts are 6-0 right now. I know.
Yeah.
Your thoughts are on trades. Your thoughts are on running the table. Your thoughts are just Super Bowl bound. And currently, what'd you send me? You have the Saints 4th overall pick. I'm like, God darn it.
Yeah.
Sickening.
So
Sickening.
Keep doing what y'all doing down there, and we'll take probably a big old offensive lineman, maybe a big center if someone comes out to replace Jason Kelsey or one of the aging vets, or just best player available. It's a real nice problem to have. But that
guys are going to get a quarterback.
Don't you dare! Don't you dare, sir!
Hey, I could pull up tweets of the last 2 years.
Man.
Hurts isn't the guy. Hurts isn't my guy.
Oh, hey, I don't know if I ever said Hurts isn't my guy. I said he's not my guy yet.
I wish I bookmarked them all.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you didn't bookmark him, it never happened. But
I never
for,
I just
for
learned
the,
I just learned to bookmark like a week ago.
Oh, okay. Now the jig's up now. Good to know now. Now I got to be a little more careful with my Twitter
Yeah.
fingers. But no, Eagles obviously being 6-0, I think I don't want to say it's expected, but I expected them to get off to a good start. I didn't expect this. I looked at the schedule at the beginning of the year, and obviously the Packers were a different team at the beginning of the year, or at least what we thought were a different team. Looking at that schedule, I said, we could go 10-0 going into, I think it's week 12 where we would play the Packers. Now, I mean, goodness,
Looking good.
they have the fourth easiest schedule to finish things out. They go out and they pick up, Robert Quinn, who is going to join. I've always talked about the Eagles and when they won the Super Bowl, what they were able to do, pretty much 8 deep on the defensive line, to the point where you're running essentially lines like in hockey, okay, A ball or A line, B line, and the A line's back in there for the third down or this or that. I think it gives a lot of depth, and especially late in the games when you're going up against an offensive line that maybe isn't fully ready to go late in the game. But for the Eagles, I'm very excited. But at the same time, as Nick Sirianni said, no one is getting a trophy for 6-0. No one gets a trophy for, 18-0. Just ask the Patriots. So just keep on keeping on. With all that being said, I know it sounds crazy to say, I still think we're the second best team in the NFL. I think Buffalo is that team right now. I think Josh Allen not only has been, but he is that guy as well. But around the NFL, the one thing that's really caught my attention, and it's kind of unfortunate, but it's the New York teams. The kind of, I mean, they were jokes, right? We could make jokes about both of those teams, and now they're both looking really good early on. Nick Sala had said, I think after week 1 or 2, he said, I'm taking receipts on everybody who's making, and we all kind of laughed at him. Well, he's got those receipts, and I wouldn't want to be on the other side of that individual. So it's unfortunate, for my Eagles to be 6-0, but also know that there is very little margin of error. This is not your normal NFC East because, 6-1. And then I think Dallas is 5-2 right there behind them. So very small margin of error in terms of, all that. But I think overall the Eagles are in good position. The NFL, obviously the Brady Rodgers saga, it seems like it's like turned into Rocky 6. Like Rocky 2 and 3 might have been a good idea. 4, 5, and 6, probably not. I feel like that's where we may be in their careers, at least what we've seen over the past few weeks. But we are going to dive into the top 10 games that we'll talk about here from a gambling perspective. Calling a little bit of an audible here as we wait for Raider Jim to hop back in. We were going to start with the Raiders and Saints, but we're going to let him come back in and give his thoughts on that one. So we will drop down a little bit, and we'll start actually with the first game that you'll have on Sunday. If you're on the West Coast, it'll be a 6:30 game. AM, that is. It'll be in London again, another international series game. We're going to have the Denver Broncos and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Seems like every year the Jacksonville Jaguars are in London, but we have the Broncos as 3-point underdogs here. I'm sorry, 2.5. Jacksonville is going to be 2.5-point favorites. The over-under here sits at 39.5. I'll give my thoughts. I really do believe that the Broncos and Russell Wilson, at some point, it's going to click. It's not going to click as a Super Bowl contender, but it's going to click in terms of something better than what we've seen. I just think he's not what he used to be. I understand that, but I still think there's more in the tank than what we're seeing. He's kind of the joke around the NFL these days. You can make jokes, this or that. He seems like he's the most memeable guy in the NFL. There was something come out this week that he was doing high knees on the plane for 4 hours while everyone else is sleeping. Obviously he is the leader of that team, and for better or worse, I just think there has to be at some point a kind of return to the norm for this team. And I do think it happens this week. And I really like Denver. I'd probably go money line. But if you want to play it conservative, buy the half point, get Denver +3. In terms of 39.5, I do think that's a little low. London games seem to kind of be a little more open in terms of the playbook, things like that. So I do like the over 39.5 here. Doesn't take a lot to get over that number. So I'm going to take Denver +3 or the money line, however you want to look at it. And then over 39.5. Coach, what are your thoughts? Denver and Jacksonville across the pond.
What a major disappointment so far for Russell. I don't know if it's age. I don't know if it's scheme. I don't know. It's obviously a performance thing, and they paid him a boatload of money. That could be detrimental and moving forward, even after he's there. But onto the game, of all the things you could count on this trip for Jacksonville Jaguars, they're extremely comfortable out there. For it to be 2.5, I'm kind of like, whoa, I like that for Jacksonville. I do. They could see them finishing it off, going into a game-winning kick tied and nailing it and winning it at 3. Or, I could see them winning it at 1. So not bad for Denver's those picking Denver, looking at Denver, but this is a team that is extremely comfortable traveling to London. This is a team that, for whatever it is right now, they've seemed to be better with a Super Bowl winning former Eagles coach in Doug Peterson. I like this number for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I don't know what's on the injury front. I don't know what's on the weather front for out there, but if history speaks for itself, count this as a W for Jacksonville with that small 2.5,
Yeah. And like you said, if any team knows how to travel and play in London, it's Jacksonville, and their yearly trip across the pond will begin this weekend. It's going to be an interesting one. Very interesting game. I'll be completely honest with y'all. I don't think I'm waking up at 6:30 in the morning to watch.
No, not this week. Not this game.
Yeah.
When the Saints were playing Minnesota, I was all up. I didn't even have to set the alarm.
I feel like at some point in the next few weeks, because we have so many of these international games, they're not the kind of cool little niche thing they used to be once a year. Now it seems like every other week we have this, but I do believe at some point there will be a game being played, but it'll be at 10 a.m. or at least, or 1 on the East Coast, 10 on the West Coast, whatever it is in London. I'm not even going to do the math on that, but kind of to fall in with all the other games going on. But this one will not be that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it last week, or is it this week, or moving forward next week? There's a game in Germany. Was that last week?
No, I definitely wasn't last week, but yes, I don't know when, but there is going. I think this is going to technically be the last London international game, because I believe we'll have Germany, and I believe, once again, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure Mexico City is going to get one. Now, we had that issue a few years ago with the field, and they ended up having to play it at the Coliseum. Hopefully they've got that figured out. But once again, I do know that they're going to be playing in Germany this year at some point. Don't know when, but I know it wasn't last week because there were no international games. But I also will say last week was, I believe, maybe the first time in my history of Red Zone where I didn't watch any of Red Zone because my beloved Padres were playing that Sunday matinee in the NLCS. So I really, like, you had texted me about the Aaron Rodgers thing, and I was like, that was the first I had known that the Packers had lost. So I was of zero help last week.
No, I don't even know why that came across. I don't even know why I sent that text. I was all NLCS. That's all that was me. I didn't watch one down. Nothing. So I'm going into this week just on with a little withdrawal. I'm not sure how much baseball I'll be watching. If Raider Jim, who should be listening or will be online with us soon. Would like to invite for, a barbecue, a Saints Raider game. I'm all,
Hey.
well, wait a second. No, I'll be in Norco. See, I'll be in Norco at soccer tournaments that I won't
Hmm.
even be able to watch the game.
Oh,
So I know. My life's
responsibilities.
all over the place. Yeah.
Responsibilities.
Don't ever grow up.
Amen. Amen. The toy would just stay a Toys R Us kid for your entire life.
There you go.
Moving on, we'll get into my wheelhouse now. This is the Battle of Pennsylvania, if you will. The Pittsburgh Steelers heading to Pennsylvania, or excuse me, to Philadelphia to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. God, I almost said Phillies. Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are 11-point favorites, the biggest spread we're going to talk about this week on the show. And the over-under sits at 43.5. Now, obviously, the Eagles are on a high. They're coming off of a bye. 11 points against a team like Pittsburgh that, I mean, they're below average if you're being nice. You could come up with plenty more words about them that would not be very nice and probably wouldn't be very family friendly. But this is going to be a tough situation, I think, for whether it's Pickett or Trubisky or whoever's going to come out and try and do something, because we talked about Robert Quinn coming back, but this team is also, refreshed. A lot of teams have injury issues right now. The Eagles don't. Maybe a little bit of nagging things that, may affect a couple snaps throughout the game, but no IR things or anything like that that would make me steer away from this. The only thing, though, 11 points, as good as the Eagles have been, they haven't been that kind of blowout team. We saw early, the first 2 out of the first 3 weeks, they were blowing teams out. But even then, they weren't putting up big numbers. I think, when they played Washington and Minnesota in weeks 2 and 3, they were dominating, up 24-3 or 24-7. They didn't score any more points the rest of the day. That's gotten a little better, but at the same time, 11 points for me, I think, is just a little too much. We even saw it against Dallas at the half. They're up 24-7, and the Eagles had to kind of scratch their way to get that win out. They never went behind, but it definitely wasn't an easy win like they had expected heading into half. But this is a tough one. But you know what? I'd probably take Pittsburgh plus 11, maybe 11.5, 21-10 type thing to cover myself. Wouldn't bet this one at all just because it's my own team. But yeah, I'll take Pittsburgh. I think that's just too big of a number for the Eagles. In terms of the over-under, I'm going to take the under. I find it very hard to see how Pittsburgh's going to score. And when, I don't want to say the Eagles play down to their competition, but I think their offense maybe adjusts to how many points they believe they need to score, if that makes sense. And maybe they turn it down a little bit. The playbook, we could save that play for week 14 against, the Giants in a big NFC matchup. We don't need to use it right now. So I'll take the under there. But Coach, what are your thoughts? Pittsburgh 11-point underdogs in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Oh, we just lost Coach as well. Looks like we are having some technical difficulties. I will vamp here for a few moments. Hopefully, I will be joined by either. There's Coach. Right back. Perfect. So Coach will get all hooked up here.
I'm back.
There we are. Perfect.
Everyone's having technical issues.
I was like, me and Coach can vamp for a bit, but I don't know how long I can vamp. But
so sorry. Before I got disconnected,
yeah.
What was the under over and what was the spread? Sorry, 11.
No worries.
Right?
We got Philadelphia's 11-point favorites, and the over under is 43.5.
I don't know what to expect from a Pittsburgh team. I kind of alluded to like parody as being a wrong word. There's just a lot of bad football lately, and that goes to speak for Pittsburgh this season as well. Even though they have great leadership in Mike Tomlin, there's been inconsistency at the quarterback position, a little hoofing and hollering between Trubisky and what's going on with Pickett, and there's a lot of mini turmoil along with that team. So I could see why that's a double-digit spread. However, I'm going to look at this game as double-digit spreads, not within the conference, but double-digit spreads within the state. There's a lot of pride between these two cities, let alone teams. So I could see Pittsburgh putting up a gosh darn good fight and keeping it under that double-digit spread. However, I don't think they score enough to go over that. That's a low 43. Where in seasons past, that typical average score between an NFL game was well into the 50s. So not so much this year. I like the under. I also like Pittsburgh to cover, like you said as well. So that doesn't mean they're going to win, but yeah, obviously they could make it a 9-point loss, right, and hold their heads up high.
I could see
interstate, rivalry.
Exactly. I could see a 2-minute drive for the Steelers. They're down 21-3, 2 minutes left in the game. The game's over. They go down, score a touchdown. Guess what happens? Boom. You 21-10. Boom. We just got a tie. Backdoor draw, or backdoor push, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
There's just too many kind of factors with an 11-point spread that are just a little. And like you said, Mike Tomlin, they might not be very talented, but they're going to be, at the very least, he's going to, I would assume, put them in the right position. Do they actually go out and get the job done? That is, of course, the other question. But it's going to be an interesting one in Philadelphia this weekend. It's going to be a very interesting weekend in Philadelphia. It's actually kind of ironic because next Thursday, the Eagles will play the Texans. There's a chance that both the Eagles and Phillies will be playing the Houston teams on the same night. So keep an eye on that. But we'll stay in the NFC East. It'll be the Chicago Bears. Pulled off a huge win this past Monday.
Wow.
They'll take on the Dallas Cowboys, who got a big win against Detroit this past weekend in the return of
How big is that, though?
Yeah.
Detroit.
Well, I think in terms of what they're chasing, maybe not the opponent, but knowing that, because I think in the past in the NFC East, you could look and go, we could lose 6 games and win this division. That's not going to happen this year. So I think the result was good for them, or at least big for them. Maybe the opponent, not so much, but they dominated a Detroit team that I think I saw the first 5 or 6 weeks. They led the league in scoring. The last 2 weeks, they haven't scored a touchdown. So that's unfortunate. I like Dan Campbell. I don't know how you can not like the Lions unless you're up there in the NFC North. They're kind of just that team that you just give them a candy and say, you know what, good luck, you tried. But for the Cowboys, sorry, yeah,
so give him a candy.
Yeah, just give him a little candy, rub him on his head, and send him on his way. You know, I mean, you can't get mad at him.
They definitely lead the league in moral victories. Let's put that. You know?
Definitely. They probably had 4 or 5 in their year when they went 0 and whatever, but
they're probably
in terms of this one, Dallas gets another NFC North kind of, I don't want to say pushover, but a team that's not very good. But they did get a nice win on Monday against the Mac Jones / Bailey Zappi combo. This week, though, I think it's going to be much different. You're going to be going to Dallas, obviously. Very not terrible home field advantage to deal with. I think there'll be plenty of Bears fans to kind of calm that down. But the defense for Dallas, I think, is the best in the NFL, and that is over the Eagles right now, which kind of, is very frustrating to me. But the only reason the Cowboys, I believe, were really kind of able to survive the Prescott injury, I should say, was that defense. There were a lot of games that the defense really kept him in there and let Cooper Rush kind of do his thing and not have to open, or go deep too often. He knew he could kind of manage the game. The defense isn't going to give up more than 17 points. He'll get the win that way. In this one, 9.5. I like the Bears to at least cover. I don't think they win the game, but I think they keep it within double digits, or that 9.5, however you want to look at it. In terms of the over-under at 42.5, I'm going to take the under here again, mainly because of that Dallas defense. I do think Justin Fields, he got hit a lot on Monday. He's going to get hit a lot again today. Or I'm sorry, not today, Monday or Sunday.
Yeah.
Goodness. But yeah, it's going to be a tough day at the office, I feel like, for Justin Fields, but they do, I think, just enough, once again, maybe a backdoor cover to get it within 9.5, but under 42.5. Coach, what are your thoughts? Chicago heads to Dallas.
You know, speaking of the defense, excuse me, Dan Quinn has these guys flying around, making plays, keeping them in the game, putting them in positions to win games at the end. However, there's a huge imbalance between their defense and their offense. Excuse me, real quick. However, I have no clue what the Bears have out there. Who's their coach? Egan Fuss or something like that? I have no idea. Yeah, Eberflus. I have no idea what kind of identity this Bears team have, other than we got Justin Fields out in the backfield. There's no quarterback controversy between him and whoever it was last year. He's the man. And they pulled out a nice win last Monday, but I mean, who is it against? You know, Dallas. You know, I can't really say much about their offensive prowess other than they don't know what to expect from Dak. They get what they get from, you know, who is it, Rush?
Yeah.
Who's their Rush. And the defense wins those kind of games. It's like the Ravens when they had a better consistent quarterback in Trent Dilfer, and they win the league. So as long as that defense is doing what they have to do, and you gave them a very high compliment, I never thought I'd hear an Eagles fan give the Cowboys that compliment. You know, you don't ever want to give them an edge on you. Besides, you guys just made a very serious move.
We did
this to shore up that, make it better. So, you know, maybe it's just the consistency and the scheme and the reputation of a Dan Quinn that has that defense doing what they need to do to keep them in the game. Yeah. I like what you said. They shouldn't cover that 9.5, but it's that defense that'll keep the game close. I also like the under because of those two defenses. So, yeah, good call on that.
We are in agreement. Still not Raider Jim yet, but we'll keep chugging along. Hopefully he'll pop in here soon.
No, Jim's the glue. Raider Jim is the glue. He like is. Rick Fox of those Laker teams, the glue guy, and he's missing out. He really – I think we're missing out. I bet you he's grilling up, blending some margaritas. You know, he'll show up at the end when he knows we'll hold off for his Raiders and my Saints.
Exactly. Final game in the NFC East we'll be talking about is the surprising New York Giants. They will head across country into is it CenturyLink Field? I don't know. It used to be CenturyLink Field, but anyway, head to Seattle to face the Seattle Seahawks. Ooh. The Seahawks are 3-point favorites here, which is very, very odd to me. 44.5 is the over under. And, you know, I kind of already maybe gave my pick away, but, you know, I know Seattle has, you know, exceeded expectations. I know Geno Smith looks maybe the best he's ever looked, which is great for Seattle. They're kind of laughing at their friends down in Denver, like, ha. Thanks for that. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know what Noah Fant's done this year, but he's also another pretty darn good player as well. The Giants, though, and the way Daniel Jones is playing, this might be a little dramatic, this or that, but I see kind of a poor man's Josh Allen. He's not going to make the throws. He's not going to hit those, you know, big old runs, things like that. But there are going to be flashes where if maybe you put Daniel Jones in a Buffalo uniform, you in an Allen jersey, you could be like, oh, okay. In certain situations, once again, maybe getting a little dramatic.
The only thing they share are the color schemes. That's
exactly. But I do think the Giants are a good enough team to cover and probably win this game. I really do like the Giants +3, maybe even the money line if if the number is right. In terms of the over under at 44.5, I do think we're going to see some scoring. Neither of these defenses really jump out to me as, juggernauts, or they're going to stop their opponents in their tracks. I do think this turns into a bit of a shootout. I think both these teams want to run the ball, so as much of a shootout you can get there. So I will take the over, but I do like the Giants +3. Looks like Raider Jim's connecting his audio, so we'll have him back here momentarily. Coach, I'll give you the honors before we dive into the Saints Raiders. What are your thoughts on the Giants at Seahawks?
Yeah, I mentioned week 3 earlier in this. Up until week 3, having a Seattle favored by 3 was laughable. And then they've totally turned the corner on Vegas's expectations, our expectations. I like Seattle 3 in this, and I do like both these teams scoring a lot this game. Now, in regards to Daniel Jones and what Brian Dable's been able to do, he's been able to scheme up games and call plays so that Daniel Jones isn't losing the game anymore. They've always been in positions to win, but then he started losing games by turning the ball over. Then you finally have a healthy Saquon Barkley, and they're able to protect the ball, get it to skill guys, make plays happen. I like their ability to score. However, I think Seattle's 12th man pulls it out for them at the end. Yeah, I don't know what the name of the stadium is, but I do know it's gosh darn loud.
Yep.
They could change that to loud.com stadium for all that matters. And that 3 points is going to be it's invaluable to them. So I do like Seattle to cover. With that said, I do like both these teams putting up numbers. And I think this is going to be a fun game of the week to watch. It's not one of those laughable games like, the previous Thursday night games that have just been deplorable, So this is going to be a fun Sunday game. I'm looking forward to it.
Be very, very interesting. We do have Raider Jim here back with us.
The
Raider
glue.
Jim, what are your thoughts? We are at the Giants at the Seahawks. We got the Seahawks 3-point favorites. The over-under sits at 44.5.
Unmute.
I think it's a little delay.
They do have Kenneth Walker in the backfield. Now, with that said, if it comes down, but I think Geno Smith is going to be able to pull a rabbit out of his hat, find some targets to throw to. I do like Seattle -3 in this one, and I like under 45.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's going to be a very, very interesting afternoon. Two teams that I don't think either of us expected to be sitting where they are in the division, their division standings. Very, very interesting there. So we are now going to dive into kind of the main event. The one thing I've been looking forward to this whole day, this whole week, besides being able to hang out with these two gentlemen, but to hear their thoughts on the big one. Maybe not for a lot of people, but for this podcast, this is a big matchup. You got the Las Vegas Raiders. They will head to New Orleans. The Raiders are going to be 1.5-point favorites in this one. The the over under sits at 49.5. Raider Jim, I'm going to give you the honors. What are your thoughts? Raiders in the Big Easy.
Marshawn Lattimore, Paulson Debo, and Bradley Roy all dinged up or questionable or out for the Saints secondary. That is what could give the Raiders the real nod in this one at 1.5. So of course I'm going to back my boys. I'm going to take the Raiders at -1.5. And I think it's going to go under 50 in this one. I don't think it's going to be a big shootout.
Gotcha. Coach, what are your thoughts? Your Saints are going to be underdogs at home against the Raiders. And as we said, the over-under is 49.5. What's your pick?
I think going into the season, nobody's in New Orleans expected us to be 2-5. This reminds me of Dennis Allen and his Oakland years. And by now, I'm hoping he would have learned a little bit more from that time then. You know, it takes one play, it takes one guy in this game to make a dramatic change in that locker room. And from what I understand, what went down after last week's game, there's been a couple of unexpected leaders step up and have some choice words in the locker room toward his teammates. So I'm looking for a spark from that. If there is no spark, you know what? Your draft pick just looks a whole lot better moving from 4 down. But yeah, we have suffered some major injuries in specific positions, like the 2 corner spots. However, the redheaded rifleman has got a vote of confidence from those offensive skill guys that are really pushing for him. And if one game this year is going to make or break our season, it's got to be this game. And sitting at 2-5 isn't a comfortable feeling. A team with expectations and a new head coach that have just disappointed isn't a comfortable feeling. And I'm going to say this game versus any other game this year, the battle for whose black is better is going to be this game. And sitting at 1.5 underdogs is fine with me, because I could see Will Lutz teeing off from 56 out and crushing Raider Jim and his team's hearts to win it by 3. I do think both teams have good offenses. We do have that home field advantage, and I think we're gonna put up some numbers. Both teams are gonna put up some numbers and get that over.
Yeah, this is the moment that I get both of my co-hosts to yell at expletives at me. But I was thinking about this game, and
No, you weren't.
sitting here and listening to you gentlemen talk, I kind of feel like a king, or like somebody who has just a boatload of gold and is just perfectly fine, you know.
Don't jinx yourself from.
I know I'm probably going to right now, but
you
for
know
the
what?
sake of the analogy, I'm going
let
to
me
for this.
let me hear you say goose. Let me hear you say goose. Come on.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But no, I feel like, you know, I'm watching you two gentlemen fight for a win, and I'm over here like, sure, you can have one of my wins. Here, you want one? I got plenty. It's all good. I feel like I'm just throwing copper out to the peasants and watching them fight over the 1 penny that I threw in the street. But no, it is unfortunate that both of these teams are in this position. But I think the good news for Andy Dalton is this game is not on prime time, or not in prime time. I think he's 0-12 in his last 12 primetime games. And we saw what happened last week with the pick 6-a-thon, if you will, in the last 2 minutes of that game. I do think the home field advantage is going to have a big part of this here. I'm going to take the Saints. I'll take money line just because, you know, I don't need to worry about any of that extra, you know, other stuff. I'll take the money line. I do like the over here. I do think we're going to see some points being scored. And even if it's through turnovers, because both of these teams aren't terribly great at keeping control of the ball. Obviously, the Saints, their issues are well documented, but the Raiders as well. They've definitely put themselves behind the 8 ball because of things like that. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a really good game. And like I said, I'm just going to kind of watch from the side and just put myself into these guys' shoes. Because I've been there, believe me, 2-5. The Eagles, we've been there, done that, as most teams have. But it's nice to kind of, like I said, be sitting up and watching down on some of these teams. But anyways, hopefully both of my co-hosts will stick around after that debacle I just put them through. But it is time to move on to let's see, where are we? There we are. The Packers at Buffalo. I tell you what, 3-4 weeks ago, this would have been a game that you go, you know what? We could be looking at this as a possible Super Bowl preview. Now we're wondering if the Packers can cover 10.5 on the road. The over-under is 47.5. Raider Jim, I'll give you the honors. There may be a little bit delay for our listeners, so just hang with us. But Buffalo, 10.5 point favorites at home. The over-under sits at 47.5. What are your thoughts, Raider Jim?
Yeah, I don't think I would ever see myself in a position to say that, yeah, I think Buffalo's going to cover 10.5 against Green Bay, but that's exactly what I'm going to say. I think they are just going to outclass Green Bay. It's the end of the Green Bay and the Patriot dynasties. It's the end of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is just what happens through the years. There's always a period where there's just a transition in the NFL or the Major League Baseball, all sports, and this is the year where it's happening. So look for Buffalo to cover and look for it to be over 47.
I agree with both of those. If I'm being honest, I think Buffalo, there's a lot of big numbers. I talked about Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, where, I took Pittsburgh just because I wasn't quite sure if Philly, really needed to cover the 11 with that defense. I think Buffalo does. Now, obviously, Aaron Rodgers has struggled the past few weeks, but at the end of the day, I don't think any of us would be terribly surprised if he comes out and throws up 350, 3 touchdowns and kind of looks maybe closer to what he was in the past. So because of that, I do like the over. I do think we're going to see some points being scored here. But I like Buffalo to just cover this. It's Josh Allen. It's Josh Allen's time. It's almost kind of fitting at this point. Aaron Rodgers, kind of the same way he plays as Josh Allen. He's almost passing the torch off now to him. As coach, you mentioned, the questions of whether or not Aaron Rodgers wants to still play football or still compete definitely need to be asked. And until I see something else from Green Bay, and conversely from Buffalo, they've been playing incredibly well. 2 teams going opposite directions. I'm going to take the team that's on the ascent. And I'll take the over as well, because I do think Green Bay will at least get their offense somewhat under control. Coach, what are your thoughts? Green Bay 10.5 point favorites in Buffalo.
Yeah, I really like that easy number for Buffalo. I don't have to talk too much about my guy, Allen. I've talked enough about him. And then I think they just like to go out there and score as much as they can. So I like that over, and yeah, I already expressed my thoughts on Aaron. He doesn't have it. He doesn't have any weapons. He doesn't have anything. It's not in him. It's obvious. And I think he's trying to pick a fight, media fight, to get out of there. So we'll see. But I'm going to enjoy Buffalo just tearing apart Green Bay.
There we go. Moving on to the NFC West side of things. 2 teams also didn't really expect to be in this situation in their division, where they are looking up at the Seahawks. But we have the 49ers at the Los Angeles Rams. The Niners are 1.5 point favorites. The over-under sits at 42.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts in the big NFC West matchup?
Tell you what, San Francisco, they got quite an addition there on that team. And I think even the Rams coach earlier this week, when he faced the press, used an expletive and said, great, they got another good player. That team's looking a little bit loaded in San Francisco. The Rams are, it's not, you can't even call it Super Bowl hangover. I'm not sure how to describe it or define it. I do think even at home, offensive game and defensive game, and I will take San Francisco on the money line and over 42.5.
Yeah, it's a huge pickup for the Niners. I saw somebody on Twitter say the Niners now have a wide receiver who can play running back. They have a running back who could play slot, and they have a fullback who could play tight end or running back. But at the head of that snake is Jimmy Garoppolo, and that might be a bit of an issue. I do think there are going to be some growing pains, and I think the one thing that's kind of the elephant in the room with Christian McCaffrey, I don't like to admit it, but we all have to. It's kind of like we're looking at week 8 and you're still healthy. Like, is that going to change anytime soon? Or like, have you fully gotten healthy, or are we going to see something happen? Because that's the one big thing with Christian McCaffrey. But I do like the Niners here. I think they do enough to get the job done. They're really lucky to be in the division they are right now, even though they are technically in third place. I think they do end up winning this division when they figure it all out. The Rams, too reliant on their defense. And I really do question Sean McVay and Matt Stafford maybe got a little complacent in the offseason, didn't maybe adjust to certain things, figured, hey, we just won the Super Bowl. Look what we did. We're good. Just keep doing what we're doing. Well, you can't do that in the NFL. You have to continually adjust. In terms of the over under here, I think it's a bit of a defensive battle, but 42.5 for these two offenses, I still think is too low. I'll take the over, but I do like San Francisco to cover on I'll put road in air quotes, because I'm pretty sure you're going to see a fair amount of 49ers fans in LA this weekend, as we usually do see in, at SoFi. So that's what I got. Coach, what are your thoughts on the Niners heading to SoFi Stadium as favorites?
Regular season game, Niners, Rams. I'm going with the Niners just because, hey, seasons past say so. Not until you get into a playoff matchup and then the tides change a little bit. But yeah, the arsenal that Shanahan's developing for, I think, more of a long-term run, closer toward week 11, 12, 13, getting McCaffrey in, getting the other weapons going. Interesting and deadly. And then you cap that off with what they've done in defenses past. These guys are going to make a run. They want to make that run. I think at the moment, who better else than Garoppolo? I don't think Trey Lance would be that guy in this position right now. And they're positioning themselves for a very deep run to through the playoffs. So I like San Francisco -1.5 on the road. I do think this is going to be more of that defensive battle that we've seen these teams just beat each other up. More of that smash mouth game. So I do like under 42.5.
Gotcha. Moving on to an NFC, or excuse me, an AFC North matchup. The Cincinnati Bengals will host the Cleveland Browns. Big news coming down today from Cincinnati. Jamar Chase out 4 to 6 weeks with a hip injury. Kind of came out of nowhere. I just made a trade for Jamar Chase. Traded Joe Mixon for Jamar Chase in my fantasy league. Not ideal. But that's the situation. Cincinnati, losing probably one of your top weapons. They do have others, but that's going to be a bit of an issue. They are 3-point favorites, over under 47. I'll get this one started. I do. Obviously, the loss of Chase is going to be tough for Cincinnati, but I think they're good enough to get the job done. Cleveland they're just kind of treading water right now until Deshaun Watson gets back, for better or worse. Believe me, I don't think he should be coming back at all, but he is. That's just the fact of the matter. I think it's week 13 is when he comes back. I think they're just trying to survive this with Jacoby Brissett. Nick Chubb looks really good, but he can't do it all himself, unfortunately. If you could win Super Bowls with having the best running back in football, the Chargers would have won plenty with LaDainian Tomlinson. Sometimes that just doesn't add up. But I do think the Saints, or excuse me, the Bengals covered the 3 points here. I think it's probably a touchdown game. In terms of the over-under, 47, two mediocre defenses, but both defenses have game changers that could change the course of the direction of the game, no matter how much their defense overall has struggled. So I will take the under 47. I think it's maybe a little more cagey first time these two teams are meeting. But yeah, give me Cincinnati to cover under 40 and under 47 for the over-under. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the Cincinnati Bengals heading to Cleveland as 3-point favorites?
Yeah, the news for Cincinnati is tough, but I think they still have enough offensive weapons to go out there, put up points on the board. They've got Joe Burrow. He's enough to keep them in the game and keep them ahead. It's going to be a situation where I think Cleveland is just going to chase them right out of the gate, and they're going to chase them all the way to the end of the fourth quarter. The Cleveland defense is kind of like the Achilles for the fourth highest points in the NFL right now. You can't hold a stat like that against Cincinnati and think you're going to win. So I agree with you on the spread there, and under 47. I'm going to go with the under because I think it's going to be a little more defense. Nick Chubb is, the top guy running the ball, but at the same time, he can't do it all against Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very interesting game, especially kind of looking forward for the AFC North. These two teams in Baltimore are probably going to be fighting it out all year, and this might be a bit of an elimination game, especially for Cleveland. Coach, what are your thoughts? Cincinnati heads to Cleveland to face the Browns as favorites.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier this year. Jacoby Brissett's just not the one. He's done a very good job, though, up until now. However, there's limitations for every quarterback. There's limitations for every team. I agree with both of you. Nick Chubb could only do so much. And again, that's a surprising defensive stat where in years past that might not be so for those Cleveland Browns. I think Joe Burrow is an elite quarterback in this league. However, I'm very curious in the response without a Jamar Chase for the next 4 weeks. They have other weapons. They also have a weapon in Joe Mixon, a good runner out of the backfield going against Nick Chubb in this game. That's why I like the under calls on this game. But I think Joe Burrow's enough to pull the win and keep that spread as is. But I'm going to go with the under and go Cincinnati Saints. Who dat?
Who dat? Who dey?
Yeah, who dat?
That's a good call there. Also, too, I looking at it now might just buy a half a point and take Cincinnati -2.5 just to cover yourself for a field goal winner game. I think that's as close as Cleveland gets in this one. Moving on to our second to last game we'll be talking about. We'll have the Arizona Cardinals at the Minnesota Vikings. Coach, you kind of started the show off when we talked about our first half impressions, how you've been impressed with the Vikings. They're going to be 3.5 point favorites against the Cardinals. The over-under sits at 48.5. Raider Jim will give you the honors to start this one off. Minnesota home favorites against the Cardinals.
Boy, those are those quiet guys that are just kind of sitting off to the side, and everybody's talking about Aaron Rodgers. Everybody's talking about Tom Brady, Dak Prescott. They're all the shiny things in the store window, and nobody's talking about the Vikings. And I will tell you what, the Vikings are a lot better than people are giving them credit for. They're coming off a bye week. They're going to be at home. They're going to be rested. Arizona's okay, but I don't think Arizona, at least from my side, Arizona hasn't lived up to what I thought they could or should be this year. And I don't think they're going to fare too well against the Vikings in Minnesota. I mean, big deal. They went out and beat the Saints last week. Well, 5 other teams have said that. So anyway, With that said, I'm going to go ahead and go with I'm going to go with the Vikings to cover the -3.5, and I think we'll see over 48.
Just when you thought the verbal sparring was over. Goodness gracious. Haymaker. Haymaker. Oh boy. Yeah, this I'm on tilt right now. That was great. Yeah, I think for Kevin O'Connell, they have him as one of the favorites for coach of the year right now, and I couldn't be more happier for the guy. He obviously in my lifetime was the first, like notable San Diego State quarterback ever to be even drafted, let alone, playing behind Tom Brady and with Bill Belichick. And I think that really helped his eventual, he was never going to be a probably starting quarterback on a very good team, but I think he could be a very, very good a very good coach. And I think we're seeing that now. He's also got the opportunity to kind of look around and be like, the Lions are the Lions. The Bears are still figuring out what they're going to do. And Aaron Rodgers is struggling. They could run away with this division before anybody even realizes what's going on. Arizona, Kyler Murray, he's I don't even want to say he's hot and he's cold. He's just kind of there. And we're not seeing that explosiveness that we're used to with him. He's
well put.
Yeah, he's a warm body at this point. And they'll win a few games, but they're also going to lose a few games because of him. I could make the Call of Duty joke that, the Call of Duty campaign came out last week and hey, maybe that had something to do with it. But I won't go there, even though I kind of did. I'll take the Vikings here, maybe by a half a point just to cover myself -3. But in terms of the over under here, I think we're going to see some scoring. 48.5 though. That's a bit much for the way I see this game going. Because if this turns into a shootout, advantage Cardinals. I just think they have more weapons. And at the end of the day, Kyler Murray is, just kind of been there. But when the chips are down, he may be a little more, big play threat than Kirk Cousins. So I will take the under 48.5 just because I expect Minnesota to win this game. And if that's the case, they can't get into a shootout with this team. But Coach, what are your thoughts? Arizona heading to Minnesota as underdogs.
I've preached the whole Kevin O'Connell regime since week 1. I think the results are speaking for it. The thing about this Minnesota defense is they started a lot of young guys the last 2-3 seasons, and those young guys grew a lot and are starting to perform in a different mentality than in seasons past. When you had the previous coach, more Zimmerman, making sure that defense was as elite or as tough as it could be with young guys and game planning more defensive minded than what Kevin O'Connell brings to the table as an offensive mind. And now you're getting to see these defensive guys and the offenses kind of like balance each other out. Well, the results have spoke for themselves up until this week. You guys mentioned Kyler Murray and this Arizona team. There's something just disappointingly lacking. More about their focus and intent for this season versus seasons past. Yeah, they got D-Hop back last week. So it'll be interesting to see how they orchestrate and get play calls going for him this week. Looking at it, you would say these two teams are going to put up well over 48.5. However, Minnesota has a running. They can control the clock with a lead. And with that defense, what it's been growing up into, I think the lack of preparation by Kyler Murray and this defense and the fact that Minnesota does have a running game could keep this game under 4.5 or 48.5. I don't really like that 3.5, the 0.5 versus 3. But I think I read a stat earlier a couple of weeks ago. The new coaches in this league or the new coaches in this league that are offensive minded have shown a better win result than the new defensive coaches in this league, including Minnesota. So, I like Minnesota in this game. I do like the under 48, and it'll be a good matchup to see. So I think this is Minnesota's. I don't know if they've really realized this is their division to lose versus just playing week to week and being all about them. I think if they start to look ahead of the pack and say, you know what, like it's lining up very well for us to dominate this division, and they got to start playing each team in a dominating fashion, and it could start this week. They're going to be faced with a team that's going to be able to put up points, and we'll see how that reflects moving forward for them in the rest of this season.
Yeah, it's going to be this is the fork in the road for I think a lot of teams the next 2 or 3 weeks. A lot of teams sitting at 3-4, 4-3, 3-3. It's kind of that time where you're going to figure out you're going to go right or left, or you're going to stay right down the middle and go 8-8 or 8-9. But a lot of these teams are going to start going one way or another. That's going to be very, very interesting going forward. And I think both of these teams are kind of on that pace right now. The final game we'll be talking about is a very interesting one. The only reason I threw this in, mainly because I want to give Raider Jim a chance to boast about how he called the demise of the Patriots on our preseason podcast, but also bring to attention this crazy spread. We have the New England Patriots heading to the New York Giants. Giants have been playing very well. New England Monday night were embarrassed by the embarrassing Chicago Bears, yet somehow the New England Patriots are going to be road favorites by 1.5 points. The over-under sits at 40.5. And just for bleeps and giggles, I threw in the New York Jets plus 115 is the money line. A little preview into what I'm thinking. But Raider Jim, I'm going to give you the honors because, like I said, you were the one who kind of called this from the beginning. The Patriots the demise has officially started.
Yeah, I know. I had my technical difficulties at the start of the show here, but part of what I wrote as far as midseason, what have I seen in the midseason? Again, it's the changing of the guard, and you can't look at the AFC. You can't look at New England in last place, 7 games into the season, and not realize there's something in the air. Things are changing, and it's not going to get any better. Now, the one thing, we don't need to have National Enquirer stuff going on in the press, but they can't help it, though, because that's how they sell papers. When they pulled Mac Jones last week, my understanding is it had nothing to do with the fact that he threw an interception. It had to do with the fact that he was coming back from an injury. That happened. Belichick thought maybe it was in his best interest to get him out of there instead of try to make him play through it. Unlike the situation that we saw in Miami, where it's like, no, I'm fine. Just because I didn't realize I got knocked out, I can still play. So, hats off to Belichick for that. But going into this game, I boggles the mind how New England is the 1.5 point favorite, except that's because of Zach Wilson. Yeah. Because of Zach Wilson, they're going to go ahead and give New England the nod on this one. And I think that was a big mistake. The Jet defense is going to come out. They're going to play hard. And I think they cover that. I'll take Jets money line all day long on this one. I do think it's going to be under 41. Neither team is really the offensive juggernaut. So there it is.
Yeah, it's, I think a week ago, or even, maybe halfway through Monday night's game, there were some Patriot fans that were saying, we're seeing the second coming of Tom Brady and Bailey Zappi. And that definitely came back to earth in that game. And that's the big thing right now in New England. They're dealing with what most teams have pretty much dealt with for the last 20 years. Patriots have been perfectly fine. They've never had a quarterback controversy. Well, now they do, and that's difficult to deal with, not only trying to pick the right guy, but it separates a locker room. I think we saw it in San Francisco, or we are almost going to see it in San Francisco, where a lot of those guys thought, you know what, I know you drafted Trey Lance where you did, but Jimmy Garoppolo gives us the best chance. And unfortunately for Trey Lance, he got hurt, and I guess, you know, it kind of worked its way out there. But I remember on one of the podcasts saying, look, if the coach is picking the guy and the majority of the locker room doesn't agree, that's a problem. Now Bill Belichick kind of has that immediate respect that you would, you know, expect that maybe the players will give him the benefit of the doubt. But like you said, we're 7 games in and they're in last place. A lot of these guys signed with the Patriots to win championships because it's the Patriots. Well, guess what? We're now wondering why the Patriots are 1.5-point favorites against the Jets. My goodness, how far we've come in 3 years. But like I said, I think this Jets team is ready to kind of take that step forward. And the big thing for me is they were doing this with Joe Flacco, and now they're doing it with Zach Wilson. You know, ideally you'd like somebody to be in there like a Josh Allen that you could always rely on. But I think this defense and the loss of the running back, is it Bryce Hill, or he's out for the year, unfortunately. His name escapes me. That's going to be a bit of a tough setback, but I think the Jets are in good shape. Like I said, I'm taking the Jets money line here. I'm not buying into the Patriots own the Jets, so they're just going to win this game. This is one right here where you almost wonder, what does Vegas know that we don't? Because this one doesn't make sense. If it was in Foxborough, okay, maybe they're 1.5-point favorites on the road, but oh goodness. I don't know what's going on in Vegas, but I also do agree with you. Under 40.5. This is going to be a 20-17 game, probably is the max. 16-14, maybe even, maybe a last second field goal type thing, but I don't think both teams are getting to 20. One of them will, and the other will be, won't do enough to get us to that over. But Coach, what are your thoughts? New England Patriots at the New York Jets. Patriots 1.5-point favorites.
Yeah, I definitely like the under on this. Both these offensive juggernauted vision head coaches just can't put enough points up. I think it's about time. The Jets money line is the pick here. It's about time. It's been how many seasons that this game has always been the New York Jets Super Bowl, and that's what it is this week. So stay away from the 1.5. Just go money line and stick to the under.
Yeah, it is. I think it is almost a little different though for the Jets, because I do feel like if they somehow lose this game, maybe all the air out of their tires is gone. They've had such a great start, and this is their measuring stick game, kind of, essentially their foe, the dragon, if you will. And if they go out and kind of lay an egg, that would be a bit devastating, not only for the team, but I know the fan base would struggle with that one. But that is all we have for you today as we look ahead to week 8. We're about 10 minutes away. Perfect timing. We'll be watching the Buccaneers and Ravens go at it Thursday night. But Raider Jim, give us your final thoughts from this edition of the NFL Weekly.
Just my right hand extended to my brother, the coach, Brandon Lupian. May the best team win. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Can't wait for that one.
Sounds like someone's mad at you for extending that olive branch, but I'll take it. And yes, so the best team win. And you know what, Raider Jim? I think we have an alliance here against the Eagles. Anything Philly, matter of fact. Anything Philly.
Yeah, I understand that.
It is what it is.
All San Diegans, I understand that.
Yeah. But no. Good luck to
have you ever seen an eagle? Eagles up close and personal, they're huge. When they fall from the sky, they fall hard.
Oh.
Yeah.
Boy. Well, that's what I get. I'm over here thinking it's going to be Coach and Raider Jim sparring, and then I open my big mouth and start talking about how I'm the king and throwing copper pieces to the peasants. And yeah, you know what? I get that. I deserve that. But
us peasants New Orleans. Wow.
My
Can't even get water.
my final thoughts, I'm just going to kind of bring it back down to earth. I guess just a reminder. I know I need to be reminded of this. I think we all need to be reminded of this. Time is very short. Unfortunately, a few weeks ago, I had a coworker who, unfortunately, she was, having some pain, and she ended up going home, was working from home, ended up getting a call that she had unfortunately fallen and was put into a coma, and she never came out of it. And it came really quick, and it just kind of reminded me that these things happen, and we love to have fun here. We love to talk about football. We love to do things like that. But I also do think it is important for a little reminder that, football is great, but maybe spending the Sunday with your significant other, or doing this with someone you haven't seen in a while, or this or that. I know I have to remind myself doing things like that. Time is very short. Football will always be there. Sports will always be there. The people around you, the people who make you feel good about yourself, or the people who you just genuinely enjoy, won't, unfortunately. So just make sure you put them as a higher priority than football, no matter how much you love this sport. But with that, thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the NFL Weekly, presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It's time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to y'all very soon. Have a great weekend.
Peace out, everybody.